Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. You join me, jumping in some 10+0 Rapid once the game starts. Not played a Rapid game in a little while. Let's see what we... Oh, this mouse is driving me mental. So literally about 5 minutes ago I was looking through all my studies and I've got this line entered, but I've not actually put anything into it yet. Got no idea what my line's supposed to be here. Let's go e4. Bishop e7, let's go bishop d3. I'm guessing something like knight f6. Because if e5, then we're going here. Yeah, so this makes sense. I'm thinking I might just go f3. It's not super critical. To me, makes some sense. Yeah, e6. b3. Okay, now we're going to have to look at this. Now that I've came up against that d6, I'm going to go c5. That makes some sense. I go c4 before that happens. So in my head, knight c3, maybe b4. Right, John, let's take a little second just to figure out what it is I want. Because obviously c5, c4 is trapping the piece. Thinking about castle king side. Yeah, so my castle king side, I kind of want this c pawn out before I do that. And I don't mind if there's a capture or recapture. So I'd rather the pawn was in c4 on all these lines. Yeah. Like if c5 I might just castle. It takes, that makes my decision quite clear. d5 is an option. Let's just get cancelled. d5 would be an interesting change of pace, but I don't know if it's quite what he wants. So knight d7. Okay, where do my pieces want to be? Queen on d2 makes some sense. Does bishop b3 make some sense? Before, I'm still really intrigued by this sort of d5 idea. Because d5, bishop b3, then c5, maybe he's getting a little bit of counterplay. Whereas if I go bishop b3, d5, I'm going e5. And I put the bishop on b2. When I do that, just in general as well, I think having the rook on c1, not having the bishop on c4 makes some sense to me. d4, okay. Here I think I continue. Queen d2. Takes, knight c5, bishop c2 is probably. So I'm thinking of this straight away. Bishop takes, f takes, knight takes, going somewhere here. Sure, let's go for it. Also leaves this isolated weak pawn on d6, which is quite nice. Okay, take here. And yeah, okay, we'll put a rook on d1, I think. Rook on c1, and then maybe go knight d5 or something. c1. So knight d5 is definitely a candidate move. Is this going to be a thing? So I go b3. b3 seems like a bit of a strange move. I just want to cover this c4 square. Yeah. Also cuts off any tricks where I forget about my e2 pawn. I can't believe I literally glanced, because I was looking briefly at the England gambit, and literally above the England in my lichess study was 1b5. And I literally thought to myself, have I actually created a line for this? And I hadn't. I haven't yet. But I might have to now, which is insane. So 95 with knight takes, rook takes, knight takes, mass exchanges, and no, that doesn't quite work, I don't think. 95 is on the radar, bishop d4. Lots of different kind of moves I'm thinking of here. I don't know if this is bothering me just yet. If it gets to h3, it might be bothering me. Because if we get to h3, put pressure on this g2 pawn. I don't want to push this. If I play h3 at any point, then maybe it goes to h5, use this g3 square. So that could be irritating. So I think in knight e5, liquidate some pieces. So knight d5, knight takes, pawn takes. Let's go queen f2, just cover this h4 square. Not afraid by this at all, am I? No, definitely not. They might just build up this way, or build up this way. And I'm still keeping an eye on this pawn as well. It's quite nice. Do I just still continue this plan? Because I think the queen exchange is quite good for me. So let's continue the plan. Because if he has to move back, then I've just gained the tempo and put the queen in a slightly more active square. These pawns control quite a lot. Here, probably just push. Maybe push onto. Okay. So where does this knight want to be? C4, potentially be quite a good square. F5 would potentially be quite a good square. So immediately I'm thinking knight e4, exchange, and then I'm threatening to go here. Also, I can maybe reroute the knight via b6. So we take c1, bishop b7, I'm guessing. Let's go bishop d7, then I think I go knight b6 here. Still keep an eye on d5, still keep an eye on these pieces here. d1. Am I really thinking rook d1, bishop c6? So yeah, I go rook knight here. So we also have rook c1. This is covered, which is another good point actually. So I could go rook c7, then across to a7. Let's do that. Let's enter the position. No, I'm not 100% sure about this. So bishop d8, rook e7. Just try and pick up this. If we try and defend it this way, that could be a way to do it. If bishop d8, rook e7, bishop b5, then I'm actually picking up this pawn. Okay. Oh, not very awake right now. It is the morning, and I've not had a coffee yet. Oh, it's recording. Yeah, sorry, I had a sudden worry this wasn't recording. d6. Okay. Do I play a4 as a preventative move? I think yes, is probably the answer to that question. I just want to stop this, and I want to play rook a7 unimpeded. And if bishop d8, rook e7 takes bishop c8. Yeah, I'm not too worried about that. We can create a passed pawn. Okay, just drop back to d4, try and trade off some pieces here. So we're not attacking anything just yet. So bishop g5, what are we afraid? So bishop d5, d8. And I don't quite have it. So rook. What's the move after this? So we're actually not. So knight 5 is before. No, I don't. If knight 5, I might go bishop here. Because there's a few different things potentially under threat here. Because this attacked twice, so I defended once. So knight b5. Now, how do you deal with bishop g5? How do you deal with bishop g5? Don't immediately see it. Bishop g5, bishop d1. You take here. There's no recapture because you lose the round. Okay, so that might just be. Don't play it. You've still got 2 minutes. You can take some time. So bishop g5. I'm threatening to take here, take here. If the bishop moves somewhere, don't quite have. I can maybe go bishop, bishop, knight. One. Knight, one. Maybe I take. Not taking first doesn't really achieve anything. Let's go bishop g5. I think potentially bishop c6 might just solve some issues, unfortunately. But hey, might go knight e1 there. This knight's a bit offside. It's not the easiest thing to get these pieces up and rolling. There's no good capture. So bishop c8, knight e8. Strange move, but I'm going into c7. Okay, here, I take this one. Okay, yeah, I was going to say I'm taking this one next. Okay, lovely. So I just wanted to show one of the lichess studies I've been setting up. So I'm essentially setting up studies for my complete repertoire, but trying to separate it out as much as possible. Just so if I want to study specific lines, specific openings, I can be a little bit more precise in what I'm looking at. And I'd literally been looking at the one below the England Gambit and noticed this one b5 move. But this is as far as the study goes, is d4, b5. Nothing else has been entered yet. So after this game, I'll have a little look at putting things in. Okay, so in the end, it was actually a very clean game from my side, surprisingly, especially coming up against one of these slightly dubious openings, and one that I hadn't really looked at. So interestingly, the book that I'm using as a reference for my repertoire recommends going into this line, and in fact they offer. So this is obviously very good for white. Nice central control development. This b pawn b missing is just slightly odd. White can use the open e file to the advantage. So I think this is probably just a good line. But there was a comment made by the author that he can't understand why people would consider moves like bishop d and f3, which I thought was slightly odd because I think they're perfectly reasonable moves. And I think Computer actually gives bishop d3 as its preferred line. I'm not going to keep recommending c5 over and over again, but the short version is breaking with either c5 earlier or the d5 break that I was looking at are kind of key for black here. And the fact that my opponent didn't go for it really caused them some issues. This f3 is probably slightly dubious. The computer doesn't mind it, but might just be slightly odd in terms of setup and piece placement and stuff. So I'll need to look at this line, have a little figure out what to do. Queen e2, top master move, and there's a lot more games in this than I thought there'd be actually. But I don't think this is the worst way to play this in the world. a6, bishop e3, e6, knight e2, d6, e4. This is one of my, I think, free inaccuracies the computer gives. And the reason is because of what I've been talking about in the game actually, and hitting with d5 right now is sort of key. Taking advantage of the fact that there's only one defender at the moment, two if this bishop comes back, but there are three attackers. So obviously we can't retreat either way because we just lose pawn e4, and after takes bishop d5. White's piece placement is very awkward. Got the isolated pawn in d4, it's knight in e2, sort of weak squares around the king. It's nothing's really, this knight should go on f3 for example, and you can always hit it with c5 at some point to sort of liquidate and equalise quite easily. So this would have been a slightly dubious line. There are other moves you can play. Queen b3, but probably after bishop c6 you're taking anyway. And apparently you're not completely bust after e5 d takes and then takes, but I don't believe that line either. So this would have been a slightly more critical way for my opponent to play it. And I did think in the game that maybe this was coming a little bit late. And surprisingly for me, I thought the computer would like bishop takes e6 a lot more than it did, because usually getting a pawn and a rook for the two pieces favours the player with the pieces, but I kind of assumed getting the extra pawn and having this bishop blunted, this bishop very passive, having this backward, this isolated pawn, and having these open lines for my rooks to attack would give me a little bit more of a concrete advantage. But the computer doesn't seem to agree, which I thought was quite interesting. But I felt relatively come to this whole way. The computer doesn't give any super concrete inaccuracy for either side, although that probably should count as one. I think it recommends bishop f2 here, which I suppose makes sense controlling, but I think the same sort of idea with queen f2. I was trying to control all the squares, so I've controlled c4 for this knight, got decent control over d5, and I'm just trying to take away this plan of h4, h3. So say, I'm trying to think of random moves you can play. So say, let's just give white random moves. Then h3. We now see how this pawn is very weak, and then obviously if I take big problems, that's a fork. I think that could be a way for black getting unnecessary counterplay. So for queen f2, just cover this advance. And if black wants to try and force it through, sure, but I might be quite fast to play h3 and f4 here. Okay, maybe not quite in this position, but you get the idea. And I do quite like my plan still of putting the queen somewhere and then the bishop falling up behind it. I feel quite comfortable here. And yeah, just my pieces are becoming quite active. Here, yeah, just putting the rook on the 7th and infiltrating the black position seemed like quite a smart idea. Here the computer doesn't understand why I don't just play knight d5, and if I'm brutally honest, I don't really know why I didn't play it either. The key factor being obviously that knight takes, pawn takes, there's no square the king can go to legally, because these squares are blocked, that defends this bishop on d7. So you need to play something like bishop d, I think the computer gives, and then rook a7, and this is essentially an improved line from what we had. But rook a7, and yeah, the computer does give bishop c6 the best move for black here. And then I think it didn't mind my plan of knight e. I think I had a slightly improved line here, but this line's absolutely fine for white and should be relatively comfortable. Was it here, or did I do this move earlier? Ah, it was here. Sorry, here, because bishop c6, as I was saying. In fact, I think we have the line. Yeah, so this is the full line computer gives. And, 3 on 3 on the king side, 2 pass pawns on this side of the board. Maybe not the simplest to convert, if I'm being brutally honest, but I think it should be relatively relatively comfortable for white to convert this. But obviously my opponent was decided to be very generous and just give away the piece. So a few different ways to do this, but obviously bishop takes. Need to recapture this piece, otherwise it's piece down, and then I'm taking the bishop on d7, which is now unguarded. So yeah, nice clean game. Probably not going to read into my openings too much. Just the sheer irony of literally, maybe not even 5 minutes before the game, having that study open. Just really got it, really confused me, and really I think could have got under my skin, but just need to spend some time and play solid. But yeah, feel like a good game.